All right, hopefully the sound works fine. On most of my videos, it seems like the sound cuts out for the first few seconds of it. This is the video for the test redo. If you got on here, you're supposed to be watching this watching this video, writing down the answers. Make sure you copy everything down that I do on the board and write out all the work and stuff. Otherwise, you probably will not get credit. Also, I will not work out probably every problem. Who knows, I may, depends on how I get going. I may leave some of them so you have to finish them to find the answer. So that's up to you to make sure that you complete the problem. If I don't, I may just set up the equation for you, then you got to finish it or something like that. We'll see as we go through this. But if you watch this, fill in the test redo that I gave you, and we'll replace the second grade of your test with that test redo score up to a certain point. I haven't decided yet exactly how I'm going to do it, but it will help you out. Question number one says, what is another name for Ray BJ? So we have Ray BJ. That means it starts at B and goes out through J. Another way that you could name that Ray, you still got to start at B and you're going out this way. Well, instead of using J, you could use O. So Ray B-O. Number 2 says, what is another name for segment BJ? So now we're doing a segment from here to there, from B to J. So we're doing that segment. We want another way to name that. It's still got to have the same endpoints, but the other way we could name it, segment symbol still, and sorry, I started to write it wrong. It said segment BJ, so we want to turn it around and put segment JB. Number 3, you had to be careful on number 3. Notice that the ruler doesn't have this part of the ruler. You're starting measuring at 1, not at 0. So we count. We got 1 inch, 2 inch. Then that's our whole number is 2, so we're 2 inches. You could almost look at the answers now, and there's only 2 possible answers that's 2 inches. But then we count the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oops, 12. I about went too far. 12. And my pen might not go exactly with it because my pen's not set up exactly right. So it's 12. So it's 2 and 12 out of, there's always a total of 16 on the inches. Well, we reduce that down and you come up with 2 and divide 12 by 4, divide 16 by 4, 12 divided by 4 is 3, 16 divided by 4 is 4, so it's 2 3/4 inches. So that segment is 2 3/4 inches long. Next one, and I'm trying to go quick because I want to make this video as short as possible. I don't want to take up any more of your time than I absolutely have to. Number 4, again, we're not starting at 0. This time we start at 5. So we start at 5, we go to 6, that's 1. We don't quite make it to 7. It's like right just barely before it. And when we're on the centimeter side of the ruler, the whole number goes in front of the decimal, and then you count the spaces. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like we go out about 9 spaces. So 1.9 centimeters is our answer to number 4. Number 5. Says find the midpoint. If it helps you, you could graph this. That's totally up to you. I probably would not graph it. But if you want to, you can. We got the point -3, 0, 7, -8. So if I do this, I might have just messed up and put my graph in the wrong spot. 3, 0, you go out to the right 1, 2, 3, and up 0. That's that point. Then 7, -8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just enough. So we're looking for the midpoint of that. If you draw that segment and you want to try to draw it exact and figure out exactly where the coordinates of that midpoint are, that's fine. But I'm going to use the midpoint formula. Midpoint formula again, you add the x's together, divide by 2, add the y's together, divide by 2. This is an x, that's a y, that's an x, that's a y. So we stick them in there. Our x is -3 plus 7. Our y is 0 and a -8. I'm going to do some of the math in my head. -3 plus 7 is +4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Over here, 0 plus a -8 is -8. -8 divided by 2 is -4. So the answer to number 5 is the 0.2 -4. Had a lot of people want to add these two numbers together to get something. Midpoint should give you a point. It should give you an ordered pair with an x coordinate and a y coordinate. Number 6 says find AC. AC is this whole thing. Well, to find that whole thing, all we're going to do is use the segment addition postulate. Segment addition postulate says that segment plus that segment should equal the whole thing. So all we got to do here is 12 plus 20. We get 32. That's our answer. 32 is our answer. This whole thing is 32. Number 7. This time they want us to find AB. That's from here to there. That's what we're looking for. Well, we know the whole thing this time is 41, and we know this part from here to here is 29. So this time, instead of adding, we're going to subtract to get this part from here to there. When you do 41 minus 29, you get 12. So the length of segment AB is 12. And I should say this right here, anytime you see this where it says find, and then it's got AB, that means segment AB. Can't be a line, because you can't measure a line. Can't be array because you can't measure array. So they don't put the symbol on it to say find the length of segment AB, but that's what it means. Find length of segment AB. That's what that means. So anytime you see that AB without the segment symbol above it, or when it says find AB, it's find the length of that certain segment. Number 8. Says identify the segment bisector and find segment AB. So we're going to identify the segment bisector. Segment bisector, there should be a tick mark on there. I'm not sure what happened to it. Looks like it disappeared on me. Segment bisector is a point, a line, a ray, anything that splits the segment into two congruent segments. And that's what these tick marks tell us, that those two segments are congruent. So this time the segment bisector is just point M. So that's the first part of our answer. Second part of our answer, we want to find the length of segment AB. Well, if these two segments are congruent, then we know 4x plus 13, or I'm sorry, that should be minus 13. 4x minus 13 has to equal 3x minus 5. So that's our equation, and we got to solve that equation. The way we're going to solve it, subtract 3x. You end up with x minus 13. These cancel out. Equals a -5. Add 13 to both sides. Make sure you're using your calculator if you can't do some of this stuff in your head. X equals a -5 and a positive 13 give us 8. That's still not our answer. We want to find the length of segment AB, that whole thing. So all we're going to do is we're going to take that 8 and plug it back in here. 3 times 8. Just take out x, put in 8. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 5 is 19. So that segment is 19, not 1.9. 19. That segment from M to B is 19. Well, these two segments had to be the same, so this one over here is 19. So to get the whole segment AB, we add those two together, 19 plus 19, and you end up with 38. That's our answer. Point M and AB equals 38. Next one, find the perimeter of this three-sided figure, which is going to be a triangle. I'm just going to draw X and the Y axes here. Mine's not drawn very straight, but be all right. We do 1, so right 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's point A. Right 1, down 3. That's point B. And C is left 1, 2, 3, 4, down -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's C. So we're finding the perimeter of that triangle. To find the length of, we got to find the perimeter, we need to find the length of all three sides. One of the sides is AB, one of the sides is AC, and one of the sides is BC. So we're going to find the length of all those. Well, AB is pretty easy because it's vertical, and all we got to do is count 1, 2, 3 spaces. So AB is 3. That's the length of it. AC is pretty easy because it's horizontal. All we got to do is count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 units long. BC is a little more difficult. We can't just count on it because it goes diagonal. So what we have to use is the distance formula. Distance formula is the big square root. You got that. It starts out looking like this every time. And we need the coordinates of the 2 points that the endpoints of the segment we're trying to find the length of, which are B and C. Well, if I look back up here, those are the coordinates of B, those are the coordinates of C. That's our X, Y, that's a Y, X, and Y. And we're just going to plug those in. We're going to plug in the X's right here, the Y's right there. So 1 minus a -4, those are our 2 X's, and -3 minus a -6. This time, both these cancel out. It won't always work that way. Then we do a little math. 1 plus 4 is 5. -3 plus 6 is 3. And again, if you have a calculator, you could have plugged it all in right here and just let the calculator do all the work for you. 5 squared is 25, 3 squared is 9. Add those together, you get 34. And then, if nothing else, if you've done all that, longhand, you got to grab your calculator for this part and you hit square root of 34. And I got about 5.8. That's not our answer, 5.8, ignore that straight mark going up to there. That's how long segment BC is. To get our answer, to get the perimeter, we got to add all those up. So grab your calculator, 3 plus 5 plus 5.8, and it gives you 13.8. So the perimeter of that shape is 13.8. Hopefully that's one of the answers on there. Number 10 says find the area. Again, I'm going to draw this shape. We got what, 5s and -5s, trying to figure out where to draw my X and Y axes. Again, my axes should be on the lines here. Mine's not very straight. It'll be all right. We go to the right 1, up 2. That's A. Right 1, down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's B. Right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 5. That's C. And right 5, up 2, that's D. So this is our shape, and we're trying to find the perimeter, or the area of that shape. Well, that shape is a rectangle, so it's just going to be length times width, or base times height. Either one, they both mean the same thing. Well, these are nice because that's horizontal. All we got to do is count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is our base. So we put 4 in place to be our height. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then all we got to do is multiply. 4 times 7. The area of that rectangle is 27. And I don't think they gave us any units, so we just put units squared. 27 units squared. Number 11 says find the perimeter of that shape. Find the perimeter of this shape. It's got 4 corners again, so it means it's probably going to be a 4-sided figure, or it is going to be a 4-sided figure. Draw my X and Y. Left 1, up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That point's going to be right in there. That's A. Left 1, down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's B. Left 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down 4. That's C. Left 6. Up 5. That's D. So we got this shape, and again, the shape looks like it's going to be, mine's not drawn very well, but it's supposed to be a rectangle. We want to find the perimeter. Since all these are either vertical or horizontal, all we got to do is count and then add up all the sides. So I'm going to count CB down here first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that side's 5. That means this side up here should be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's a rectangle. This side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that side's 9. This side over here is going to end up being 9. And to find the perimeter, all we want to do is add all those up. So the perimeter equals 5 plus 9 plus 5 plus 9. We add all those up and you get 28 units. Perimeter is always just in regular units. Sorry about that. Number 12. Find the area. This one, you had to be careful on this one because it goes by twos. Doesn't go by ones, goes by twos. So when I count, this is a rectangle again. We're still trying to find the area, so area is going to be length times width or base times height, whichever one you want to use. When I go to find this and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, that side's not 4 units long. It goes by twos, so it's actually 8 units long. This side we count and it goes 1, 2. It's not 2 units long, it's 2 times 2, which is 4 units long. So our length is going to be, we can use 4, it doesn't matter. Length is 4 and our width is 8. Doesn't matter which one's which. Then we multiply and we get 32 units squared. That's our answer for that one. Just had to be careful on this because it went by twos. Make sure you look at a graph. Anytime you're looking at a graph or anything, any kind of diagram, make sure you look at it carefully. Number 13 says find angle BDC. So we're actually looking for this angle. So we're going to have to find X and then plug back in right there. Well, we know that this angle BDA, that whole thing along the bottom here, angle BDA is a straight angle. So all we're going to do is take this plus this, and they should add up to equal 180 because they're supplementary angles. They add up to be a straight angle. So negative 7x plus 12 plus, we could do plus, but since that starts off with a minus, or a negative, I'm just going to put minus 8x plus 48. Because if you put plus or minus in there, it just confuses things. Those two added together, this plus this should equal the whole thing, which we know is 180 degrees. Collect like terms. You get negative 15x, negative 7x, and negative 8x give you negative 15x. Then you got a 12 and a 48. That gives you a positive 60 equals 180. Subtract 60 on both sides. You end up with 120 on this side. The 60s cancel out. You got negative 15x on this side. Divide both sides by negative 15. These cancel out and you're left with x equals, grab your calculator if you don't know what it is. I know a positive divided by a negative is going to give me a negative. So 120 divided by 15 equals a negative 8. So that's what x is. They didn't ask us find x, they asked us find this angle, so we need to plug in there. Negative 7 times negative 8 plus 12. We just took out that x right there and stuck negative 8 in its place. Negative 7 times negative 8 is positive 56 plus 12 gives you 68. So that angle would be 68 degrees. Hopefully that's one of the answers on there. 68 degrees. Number 14. Sort of the same idea on 14, except this time these two angles don't add up to 180. They add up to this box right here, which tells us 90. So negative 3x plus 20 plus, that's this angle, plus the other angle, And again, it's a -2, so I messed that up. -2x plus 55 equals 90. Doesn't really matter, I have this right here, and it's a positive and a negative together. It makes really no difference because I'm getting ready to collect these like terms anyway. -3x and -2x give us -5x, 20 and 55 give us 75. That should be 90 over there. My pen didn't write. Still equals 90. Subtract 75 on both sides. You end up with -5x equals, these cancel out. 90 minus 75 is 15. Divide by -5. You end up with x equals -3. They didn't ask us to find x, they asked us to find angle BDC, which is this angle. That angle right there. So we're looking for that angle, which they told us right here. So we got -3 times x, well x is -3, so we stick that in its place, plus 20. Just taking out this x and sticking -3 in its place. -3 times -3 is 9, 9 plus 20 is 29. So 29 degrees should be the measure of that angle. Number 15. This should say ray RT, sorry, forgot my symbol. Take off points. If you forget your symbols, I forgot mine there. Ray RT bisects. Bisects tells us it splits it into two congruent angles. It bisects this angle, so it splits it into two congruent angles. That angle is congruent to that angle. They tell us QRT, that's this angle, QRT, that angle is 54 degrees. Well, if that angle is 54 degrees and this ray bisects the big angle, then that means this angle has to be 54 degrees. They want us to find angle SRQ. SRQ. That's the whole thing. To find that whole thing, all we're going to do, take those two and add them together. 54 plus 54. And you end up with 108. So that whole angle has to be 108 degrees. Complement. What's complement mean? Complement means two angles that add to 90 degrees. Two angles that add to 90 degrees. They say angle 1 and angle 2 are complements of each other. So that means they got to add up to 90. Well, if angle 1 is 66 degrees, the way we find angle 2 is just subtract. So 90 minus 66. Grab your calculator and do it, or you can do it longhand like I'm doing right here. You end up with 24 degrees. That has to be the measure. The measure, remember that means measure of angle 2. So measure of angle 2 equals 24 degrees. Next one, supplementary. Instead of the two angles adding up to 90, this time if they're supplementary, the two angles add up to 180 degrees. If angle 1, where the truck ramp is 6 degrees, then to find the other one, we just take 180 minus the 6, and you end up with 174 degrees. So the other angle there is 174 degrees. Angle 2 is 174 degrees. That's your answer. Measure of angle 2 equals 174. Number 18, name the angle in all ways. There's only one angle in this picture, but there's 4 different ways to name it. And I don't remember which ways they actually have on the thing, but I'm going to show you all the ways that you could name this angle. First thing you could do, angle 8, just using that number right there. Then, since there's only one angle in the picture, we could just use the vertex, which is Q. So we could say angle Q. Remember, this is the way I do not like to use because it confuses everybody and they think they can use it all the time. Next way, if I start out here and start walking, what letters do I cross and what order are they in? So I cross E, I cross Q, then T. That's another way to name it. If I had started out here and walked the opposite direction, then I cross T, I cross Q, then I crossed E. Those are all 4 ways to name that angle. I think that's a multiple choice question still, so you'll have to figure out which answer it is. Next one. Number 19 says find AB, that means find the length of segment AB. Find the length of segment AB. Nice thing about this one, we look over here at segment AB, and it's a horizontal segment. So all we got to do is count the spaces from A to B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our answer is just 9. The length of segment AB, we could write AB equals 9. If it's horizontal or vertical, you just have to count. Next one says find the midpoint. If we're finding the midpoint, then that probably means we're using the midpoint formula. Again, you add the x's, divide by 2, add the y's, divide by 2. Oops. Add the y's, divide by 2. And we're looking at segment AB. So we're using those two right there. Now, if you actually looked at this and you wanted to go through here and just figure out where the middle is, you could do that, and I wouldn't throw a big fit. I'm going to use the formula right here. That helps you again. That's an x, that's a y, that's an x, that's a y. Put them in there. So our x's are -3 plus 6. Our y's are 3 and 3, is that right? Yep. -3 plus 6 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. I'm working this out. Probably shouldn't take this much work. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, or 1.5 I would accept. 6 divided by 2 is 3. That's our answer. A lot of people, again, want to add these together. No, it's a midpoint. So we're saying if we go over 1.5 and up 3, over 1.5, somewhere about in here, up 1, 2, 3, that point right there is the point that's directly in the middle of that segment. If you add them together and got like 4.5, that wouldn't tell you the midpoint, that doesn't tell you anything. So here's where you stop when you're finding midpoint. You're looking for an x coordinate and a y coordinate. Next, find DC. Again, this means find the length of segment DC. DC is down here. Not quite as easy as AB was because it's not horizontal. So we have to use the distance formula. So we set up the distance formula. Looks like that every single time. X, Y, X, Y. Use the 2 points that you're trying to find the length between them. We're going from D to C, so we use those 2 ordered pairs. Here we got -7 and 6 for our x's. We got -4 and -3 for our y's. You put this on your test. On the original test, I gave you a point, just for knowing which ones were your x's and y's. Now we're going to do a little math. Again, you could plug all this right here into your calculator and it'd do it all for you. I'm going to do it out longhand here. -7 minus 6. Hopefully you got a calculator so it can help you with some of it. -7 minus 6 is -13 squared. -4 plus 3 is -1 squared. -13 squared. -13 times -13 is 169. -1 squared is -1 times -1, which is just 1. By the time you get to here, you should have all positives. If you end up with a negative at that point, then you messed up somewhere. It should all be positives. Distances are always positive. Add those together, we get 170. Square root of 170. So point for writing it out that way. If you got to this point, I gave you another point. And then the answer, you just take your calculator, hit square root 170, and I got 13.0. That's another point. That's your answer. So that problem was worth 3 points. 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here. Next one, find the midpoint of segment DC. Well, if we're finding the midpoint, that means we're using the midpoint formula for DC. So we're going to set it up. It's always divided by 2. We take our x's, and again, if it helps you, put x there, y there, x there, y there. We got -7 plus 6 is our x's. -4 plus a -3 is our y's. -7 plus 6 is -1. -4 plus 3 is -7. We do the division. Well, you can't really divide 2 into 1, so we could just put -1/2 or -0.5. Either one's fine. 2 will go into -7, -3.5 times. Again, you don't do anything with these two. That's your midpoint. That's the point that's right in the middle. So if we go to the left 1/2, down 1, 2, 3.5, we should be on a point that's on that segment that splits that segment into 2 equal parts. So if I walk from here and you walk from there, we should walk the same distance. Next one. Name 3 different angles. 3 different angles in this picture. There is no angle E in this picture. So get that out of your mind right away. You can only do that when there's only one angle in the picture. Can't name any angle in this picture angle E. We know that we're going to have to use the angle symbol on all of these, and we're going to use 3 letters. First one, this one. Doesn't matter which one comes first, actually, but so angle ZEP. Next one, I'm going to start here. Angle PEW. And then the third angle is the whole thing, from here all the way around to here. So angle ZEW. 3 completely different angles in that picture. Now there's other ways. If you name this top angle, you named it angle PEZ, that's fine, but you can't also name angle ZEP because that's the same angle, just named 2 different ways. And we wanted 3 different angles. Next one, 24, classify and tell whether it's concave or convex. To classify, just do this. That's 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so it's got 8 sides. If you're not sure, you look at the poster that's on the wall. So one of our answers is it's a octagon. Remember, concave, convex. Convex, all the angles less than 180. Concave has one of the angles that points inwards. Something like that, more than 180. So this one is convex. And that's the ones that we'll deal with most of the time. Next one, name the bisector and find the length of segment AB. The bisector here, several different ways you could name the bisector. You could have just said point M. That would be the bisector. You could have named it as that whole line there. And that would have been fine. That's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to name it line NM. 2 letters to name a line. So that's the first part of our answer. Next thing, if it bisects it, we know that these 2 parts, that's what the tick marks tell us, are congruent. So if this one's 48, this one over here has to be 48. They want us to find the length of segment AB. AB goes from here to there. So all we got to do that is add those 2. 48 plus 48. And that gives you 96. So the length of segment AB is 96. You had to have both those answers. One of them's your bisector, one of them's the length of the segment. Next one. Find the measure of angle FBE. Mine looks a little nicer than it did on your test because it had a whole bunch of angles on there. I cut all those angles out, and so what you got to do with your imagination. And I just put in angle FBE. Can't draw it, but it's right there. Well, it doesn't start at 0, so we got to be careful. It doesn't come over here and go to 115. We start here and we go, okay, that's 10, that's 20, that's 30, that's 40, that's 50, that's 60, that's 70 to 110 right there. So we're 70 degrees. Then we count spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're out here actually 5. So 70 plus 5. So the measure of that angle, 75 degrees. Then it also says to classify the angle. Acute, obtuse, or right. Well, a 75-degree angle is a acute angle. So those are your two answers. Next one. Find the measure of angle ABE. Again, I cut off all the other angles, so all I got to look at is that one. You might want to answer the second part of the question first. Classify it. We look at that angle and we know it's a obtuse angle. This one's nice because it actually does start down here at 0. So all we got to do is follow this set of numbers around. Looks like we get to 110 and then we go out an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, about extra 5 spaces. So 110, out 5 more is 115 degrees. So something about that. Some of them on the test might look like 116, might look a little off. I gave you credit, it's close enough. Next one, 28. They tell us angle B and angle C are congruent. So this angle is congruent to that angle. If those two angles are congruent, then that means these two expressions have to equal each other. So all you're going to do is set up 2x plus 47, and it has to equal 9x plus 33. Now we solve it. Subtract 2x on both sides. These cancel out. That leaves you 47 on the left. 7x plus 33 on the right. Subtract 33. These cancel out. You're left with 7x on the right and 14 on the left. Divide by 7. You're left with x equals 2. You got this equation? I gave you a point. You got x equals 2. I gave you another point. They ask us to find the measure of angle B. So it's right here. So we just plug in 2. 2 times 2 plus 47. That's 4 plus 47, which is 51. So the measure of angle B is 51 degrees. That's another point. So 3 points on that problem. Next one, 29, 30, and 31. Name plane ANW in another way. Well, there's only one plane in our picture here. That's this plane right here. One way you could name it, they give you a letter down there in the corner, so you could just name it plane, have to write out the word, O. Another way is just to pick any 3 letters that fall on that plane that aren't all on the same line. So maybe I pick D, P, and A. And I name it plane D, P, A. There's a whole bunch of other ways that you could have named that plane. Number 30, name line WP 2 other ways. Well, the first thing I know right away, if I'm naming that line 2 other ways, the new thing's got to be lines also. Line WP is right here. Well, I just picked any 2 letters on that. So N and W fall on that line, so I could call it line NW. We already used W and P, so we don't want to use that again. We could have named it backwards and used PW, or we could use PN. Bunch of different ways to name it. 3 collinear points. They gave you blanks. All they wanted was you to write it out. Point, and then pick 3 points that are on the same line. What we just said, points I would have probably picked, looking at that line that I just traced right there, I would have probably picked point N. Remember, collinear means on the same line. Point N, point W, point P. Those are collinear. Next part says 4 coplanar points. So again, I'm going to write point on all of these. And we just want points that are all on this same plane. Now you sort of have to be careful. Some of you put S, and I probably gave you credit for it. I don't think S is really on that plane. So I do like point A, point N, point D, point W. There's other answers you could have given also, but that's the way it should have been written. Next one. They gave you a big long word problem and it said find the total distance traveled. Well, to find that total distance traveled, all we're going to do is take 335, the first part of the trip, plus 135 the second part of the trip, and add them together. And we get 470 miles. 470 miles. That's answer to part A. Part B, a lot of you got credit for it because I kept screwing up the formula here. Distance equals rate times time. We know the distance and we know the rate, we know the time. We don't know the rate. That's what we're looking for. We're trying to find how fast was the ship going as it was traveling. So we put in the distance, which is 470. We don't know the rate, so it's R. We put in the time, which they told us was 18 hours. Well, to get R by itself, all we do is divide this side by 18. If you divide that side by 18, you got to divide this side by 18. And that's going to tell you how fast the ship was going in miles per hour. So grab your calculator and you do 470 divided by 18, and you get about 26.1. So I'm just going to say about 26 miles per hour. It was going about 26 miles per hour. And again, I messed that one up because I had the wrong formula on some of the tests, and then for one of the classes I even wrote the wrong formula on the board. Wrote it over again. Didn't realize it. Number 33, name two supplementary angles. If they're supplementary, they got to add up to 180. So I look down here and I'm trying to find two numbers that add up to 180. Well, 106 and 74 add up to 180. So it's those two angles, the 106 angle and the 74 angle. And we just got to name them. Make sure you use your symbols. So angle RQZ, that's that first angle. And use the angle symbol again. This other angle, TS. I think that's supposed to be an O, not a Q. I got a Q on there. Angle TSO. Let me look at the test. On my PowerPoint, I must have messed up and put a Q instead of an O. Let's see. Yeah, it's supposed to be an O over here. Complementary angles. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So two angles that add up to 90 degrees. I look here, 28, 62, 28 plus 62 gives us 90. So those are the two angles I want. So I'm looking at this angle, I got to name it. Angle RQD and angle, the 62 degree angle is this one. Angle PSO. Those are your two answers. Making sure you use your symbol and 3 letters to name an angle. Symbols and 3 letters to name an angle. Number 35, angle 12, and what angles are vertical angles? Remember, vertical angles are the ones that are across from each other when you have two lines. So if that's angle 12 right there, we want the angle that's across from it, which would be angle 10. If I just wrote this down, that's wrong. Gotta have your angle symbol. That's your answer. Angle 10. If we're looking at angle 9, angle 7 would be the vertical angle for it. 36, graph the pairs of points, then count to see if the segments are congruent to each other. So I gave you a point if you graphed them. We got 3, 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's R. Then we got 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, and up 7. That's S. So we're looking at that segment. Then T is 5, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. That's right there. U is 5, negative 3. 5, negative 3. That's right there. This was T, that was U. We count here, that's 1, 2, 3, it's 3 spaces long. That's 1, 2, 3, that's 3 spaces long. I gave you a point if you graphed it like it said, and then your answer on the blank should have been yes. Give you a second point for that. They're the same length, so that tells us that they must be congruent. 37, draw a line and array that intersects a plane at the same point. First thing you're going to have to draw, and a lot of you didn't do it, draw a plane. So I got some plane that looks like this. Maybe we call it, we put a letter in the corner up here and we call it plane M. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Didn't even have to name it if you didn't want. We want a line and array that intersect this plane at the same point. Well, what I would do, pick my point where they intersect, then I draw this. What's that dotted part tell us? That it goes through the plane. Then I got some ray. Maybe this ray comes up out of the plane. So we got our line, and they both intersect that plane at that same point. That's your picture. .38, draw a line DE and line MP intersecting at point M. First thing I would do, draw a line. Got to put the points on the line. You can't put D out here somewhere. So it's got to be point D there. Point E is on the line right there. Then we got another line, and it's got to intersect this one. Got a point P somewhere on it. Doesn't matter where really, but we'll put it right there. What does matter is it says it intersects at point M. Well, where they intersect then has to be the M, so that has to go right there. That's your picture. That's the test redo. Hand that back in, completed, and we'll go from there, and I'll add on to your grades or whatever I decide to do from that point.